a $290,000 a year salary, a $1 million net worth, and a financial plan that still fails. That is the situation for the person that we are focusing on today. Meet Michael. Michael is a senior product manager at Amazon. He's 33 years old, he's single, and he lives in Central Michigan. Michael is making great money. He's spending a good amount of it, but there's still quite a bit left over for saving and investing. When we ran the numbers on his current path, things didn't hold up. So I'm going to walk through his situation, go through the numbers, and show you what we would recommend for someone in a situation like this. So let's get into the financial plan. So let's start with looking at our net worth screen. So we can see that Michael's net worth is around $926,000. He's got some money in the bank between checking and savings accounts. He's also got a credit card, and he's got various investment accounts. Let's look into those. So amongst his investments, his biggest asset is his Amazon stock that he has been receiving over the years. He also has a 401k and a taxable brokerage account and a 401k from a previous employer. Michael's currently renting. He's paying around $2,700 a month for. We also have a car in here as one of his other big assets. Now, a real financial plan is going to have a lot more in here. We'd probably have some insurance in there. We would probably have some more property put in there, but we're not going to worry about any of that for today. So let's take a look at Michael's goals. Over the last few years, he has adopted the FIRE mindset of financial independence, retire early, almost unintentionally, and has put a target retirement date of 50 on his list of goals. However, he's not totally sure. It may be sooner, it may be later, but he wants to just see what 50 would look like to start. So we've got a lot of other goals in here as well. We can see his retirement expenses being about $10,000 a month, and that's what he's spending right now. We've also got some healthcare costs in there, long-term care at the end of his life, some more cars, purchasing those about every 6 years. In addition, Michael would like to purchase a home at some point. He's thinking probably in the next 2 to 5 years. So that is what we have here, about a $550,000 house. He also has a goal for planning spending for a nice wedding and eventually a vacation home when he retires. Additionally, he does think that he would like to have children at some point, and he would like to pay for their education costs, their undergrad education costs. So that's what we have from a goals perspective. Now, a real plan would have further sub-details that we would be diving into for each of these goals, but let's stay high level for now. Income. We already mentioned that his annual income is $290,000 a year plus additional RSUs and some restricted stock that he'd be getting. As for savings, let's look at his savings here. So Michael right now is saving $2,000 a year into his taxable brokerage account, and he is maxing out his Roth 401k. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, that is great. Look at that. He is contributing so much money to a Roth. But we're going to come back to this and take a closer look at why that may not be a great idea. Expenses. So let's take a look at his expenses. So I mentioned that the amount he's going to spend in retirement is the amount that he's spending right now. We're just keeping that the same for right now. So that's $10,000 a month. Okay, so that gets us through some of our baseline things to be entering into the plan. So let's take a look. Let's see how that projects. Let's see what he is on track for, what his roadmap looks like. So drum roll. Here's what we got. So 60%, it's not great. It could be worse. It could be a lot better, but it's not great. So what does the probability of success really mean? What is that telling us? What it's saying is that over the course of Michael's life, what is the chance that he will finish his life or otherwise pass away with money left over? So a 60% chance is more likely than not that he will pass away with money left over. Don't focus on the value next to that for now. It gets a little bit complicated when you start to interpret what that number means, but understand that from a broad perspective, we're saying that this chance of completing all of these goals for Michael, it runs at about a 60% chance of him being able to do all that. So there's a lot that can be improved. There's probably 30 different recommendations that we could have here. So I'm just going to focus on 10 things. It's not 10 full recommendations. Some of the 10 are recommendations, but I'm just going to focus on 10 points here as we kind of adjust and tweak the plan just a little bit to see what some little tweaks can do over the long run. And we're going to go through this rapid fire. So we're going to switch over to the proposed plan. So I went ahead and added in the recommendations. Let's take a look at what some initial recommendations might be for someone like Michael. So here we go. And I'm going to scroll down to just to save the suspense of what the difference looks like. So we're going to hide that for now. Okay, so what you're looking at here are basically the various things that Michael had going on. So on the each of these sides, you can see there's two columns. One column being the current plan, one being this initial recommendations plan. So in the initial recommendations, we still have Michael retiring at 50. Okay, you want to retire at 50? We'll keep you at 50. So initial recommendations, sure, you can do that. How much are you spending in retirement? You're doing that early retirement, so you're going to be spending this amount for a long time if you're retiring at 50. So $10,000 a month, what you're doing right now, we're going to say that you're doing the same in retirement. Now that may change, it often does, but that's a good baseline area to start. So we take a look at the savings. We say, Michael, you can probably be doing more than $2,000 a year into a brokerage account. Let's try $10,000 a year. So that's an $8,000 increase. It's not a dramatic increase over the course of a year for someone making $290,000. Certainly something that's going to be possible. So I showed earlier that Michael was maxing out his 401k and making all of his contributions to a Roth account. So, okay, you're maxing it out. That's a great savings strategy. That's a great thing that he's doing. But hey, let's actually switch this to a traditional 401k, to a pre-tax 401k, a 401k account where you will get a deduction for those contributions. And you know why? It's because Michael is making a lot of money right now. With his income, he is at a higher tax bracket now than he will likely be in his years in retirement, especially in a retirement where he is retiring before Social Security and before he has Social Security income coming in. So it's almost, he won't have an income stream anymore. So that's going to lower down his tax rate. In all likelihood, there will be some things that we'll touch on for that, but in all likelihood, his tax rate will come down unless we do something to change that. So because he has at a high tax rate right now, we want to say, let's get a tax deduction right now. Let's take some of that income out of that really high marginal tax bracket that you're paying at right now. Let's take that out and put it into a 401k to get you a tax deduction. So that's the only change we're doing. He's not contributing more to his 401k. He's just changing the contribution type. At his income level, an after-tax 401k, a mega backdoor Roth is definitely worth consideration. I'm not even going to include that now, but that's something that he would, in all likelihood, something he should take interest in and something that we would consider and in all likelihood probably implement. But for the sake of keeping things easy, we're not even going to have him do that strategy yet. Backdoor Roth. We'll have him do that one. So we'll have him, we won't do the mega backdoor yet. We won't get crazy, but we could, and we would, but we won't even do that yet. We'll just do a backdoor Roth. So backdoor Roth, you can do an additional $7,000 in the future. That would probably even go up even more with inflation. So it gets offset. But for this year, and the system is accounting for that amount increasing every year like it does. So we got a backdoor Roth. We'll do $7,000 towards that. That'll get some more money into Roth. So that'll kind of offset him losing the ability to do some of that Roth. We'll do the backdoor Roth. Michael also mentioned that he wants to pay for his children's education. So, okay, so we'll do that. What you were going to save before, instead of just saving in your checking and savings account, we're going to move $7,000 of that into a 529 account. Okay, so same amount as before, but we're doing it into a 529 account this time, which is a college savings account where that money can grow tax deferred and be pulled out tax free. That makes a big difference. We're also going to do your HSA. You've got one. We're not going to go crazy with it. Once you're married, you can be doing more. We're going to do 3,000 into that and do that annually. Okay, so we covered a lot there. I'm going to move on quickly to just the last three things that we changed. Again, there would be many more recommendations to this, but we want to keep this going and just see what some of these initial recommendations may look like. So additionally, we changed the investment allocation over the years to maintain a little bit of aggressiveness because Michael is retiring at 50. He's not doing a normal retirement at 65, which most advisors plan for with an eventual shift to a 60-40 portfolio. There's nothing wrong with the 60-40 portfolio. If you're not familiar with it, it's 60% equities, 40% bonds. It's a highly touted investment strategy for getting growth while also getting income. It's a highly touted retirement strategy. And so there's nothing wrong with it. But for someone retiring early, they will likely want a considerably more aggressive retirement portfolio because their retirement period is longer. So if you think about it, someone that's retiring at 50 years old and living to 90, they have a 40-year retirement period in all likelihood versus someone retiring at 65 and living till 90, only having that 25-year retirement period. So your money will need to last longer. And because of that, you need to get more out of it. So when you think about that, Michael is an aggressive risk taker with investments. He's been comfortable with having a large portion of his company stock representing his portfolio. So he is comfortable with a little bit of a roller coaster ride with his portfolio if it enables him to get that early retirement. So we also have Social Security, him taking it at 70. I won't dive into that for very long. That's always a bit complicated on what age you take that. And a lot of advisors agree and disagree on various things that there's a big debate on that. I'm not going to focus on that here. So the last thing, and one of the biggest planning strategies is what we're doing with taxes. And so it's a whole number of different things. Many of the recommendations that we couldn't even get into today do relate to taxes. But one that I did want to kind of show and talk about is a tax strategy of doing Roth conversions. So with an early retirement, I mentioned, you are going to be at that time entering a period where you no longer have a salary, your income drops. And when your income drops, that is generally a good time for doing Roth conversions because you say, hey, I want to take a little bit of money and pay taxes on it at a low tax bracket and get it in a tax-free account. So that's the whole idea behind it. It's a lot more nuanced, but that's the idea. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that with Michael's sum of 401k. I mentioned we are switching his contributions to be pre-tax, get a tax deduction on it. That puts it into a bucket of funds that is ready for Roth conversions. So, when it's in there, that's a good account to do the Roth conversions from. So you're just priming that account with those contributions. So a kind of another good reason to switch from the Roth to the pre-tax. Now, that's a very nuanced discussion as well. So your situation is going to depend heavily on your own individual circumstances, but this is what worked for Michael. Okay, so big reveal. What does that do to the probability of success? It amplifies it significantly. So that increases the probability of success to 86%. Now, keep in mind, this is without contributing significantly more to how much he's saving. So most of these changes are coming from tweaks to what he's doing rather than saying, hey, you need to cut back on your spending, or you need to work longer, or you need to save a heck of a lot more. You need to do all these more savings, or you need to take Social Security earlier. Instead of compromising on a million things to get him to be able to have the amount needed to reach his goals, It comes from making tweaks to what he's doing with the current amounts he's saving. So yes, we were saving some more to the taxable brokerage account, but that's a drop in the bucket overall compared to what the other strategies are attributing to this jump up in the probability of success. So the other thing being is that, most people, when they enter this situation, they don't know that they're running at 60%. So in the case for Michael here, he knows he's doing well. He knows he's saving a lot, but he does not have any clue about whether that is enough. Enough is the key thing to focus on here. He has a great job and he is getting great compensation and he's saved a lot, but it's all relative to the goals that you set out for yourself. So information is key. It's important to be informed, because if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have everything lined up and you don't have a strategy, you could be headed on a road that doesn't get you to where you want to go. So that's a good sneak peek into what financial planning looks like. If you found today's video to be helpful and you're wondering how some of the things that we touched on relate to your personal situation, you can go to the link in my bio or the link in the video description, and I'll put that in there where you can schedule free time with me. First consultation is always free, and even if you don't sign up to come on board, you'll still walk away with a lot of things to think about.